Hi, so today I'm going to be reading out loud my notes on the European exploration and also the commercial revolution. This is a dark part of history, but it's in the notes, so I'm going to go over it. So the age of exploration was led by Spain and Portugal. Some reasons were their geography, because they were a peninsula facing the west. Also, the reconquest from Muslims made Spain and Portugal very Orthodox Catholic, and they wanted to spread it. Also, the Ottoman capture of Constantinople created a need for new trade routes. There were also new naval technologies that they learned from Muslims, such as cartography, which is map making, astrolabes, which is like finding out where you are based on the stars, and caravels, which was a new technology in shipbuilding. So Columbus's visit obviously had a large impact. The conquest of the Americas by Spain made it the wealthiest and most powerful nation in Europe. The king strictly controlled the colonies. First was the Council of Indies, which were Spanish aristocrats who decided the policies and stuff. Then there were the vicarios, who were local governors. Then there were the cabildos, who were local rulers. The religion, Roman Catholics dominated the Americas eventually. The colonies, I mean. The church converted Native Americans and controlled their education. Cortez, it was one person we should know, he conquered the Aztecs, and Pizarro conquered the Inca. So the economic systems. Mercantilism is, that's made up of economic policies where the colonies exist to benefit the mother country. In a closed market, raw materials go to the mother country, and the colonies get all their imports from the mother country. Finished goods go back to the colony. In the encomienda system, Spaniards were given tracts of land, and they were responsible for the well-being of Native Americans. They were used as forced labor, the Spanish priest, named Bartolome de las Casas, wrote a book about how he didn't like the encomienda system, which led to the hacienda system, which is equally bad. It was a reform that divided the land amongst Native Americans and Spaniards. But the Spaniards got large plantations, and the Native Americans were given poor land. So the culture in the Americas was a blend of African, American, and Spanish culture. They had a strict social class system. On top were the Peninsulares, who had a Spanish origin. They came from Spain. Then there were the Creoles, who were descended from Europe, but born in the Americas. So either way, they were European. Then there were the Mestizos, who were European and Native Americans, and Mulattoes, who were European and African. I didn't know that was which was lower on the class system. And then there were at the bottom were Native Americans and Africans. This is the dark part of history. Then there was the Columbian Exchange, which is cultural diffusion of goods, ideas, and people throughout the world. It was the first global network. Some things they exchanged were people, forcibly and not forcibly. Goods like coffee, bananas, etc. Animals and like horses would be an example, and also diseases like smallpox. So their imperialism is the influence of one society over another. In Africa, Portugal conquered many East African port cities, and the Dutch Boers established Cape Town in Africa. This is setting the roots for apartheid. In Asia, Portugal captured Malacca, which is in Malaysia, and the Dutch captured Malacca from Portugal, and then Spain claimed the Philippines. England created the Alchines with sorry, I misread my handwriting. England created alliances with Indian rulers, or Sepus, who disliked the Mughal dynasty. We can see how that influenced imperialism in India today. Not today, later in history, not today. In the Americas, the conquistadors conquered LA for modern day LA, obviously, for Spain and Portugal. France settled in Canada, and England settled in America, North America. So next is the slave trade, and it was triangular trade. So Europe went to Africa to get slaves who went to the Americas, and they made goods that went to Europe. So some things that the Europeans got from Africa were liquor, guns, slaves, raw materials, and money. African slaves were needed to work on the mines and plantations in the Americas. Bartolome de las Casas, you probably remember from earlier, since he did not like the previous encomienda system, that was what led to the African slave trade as a way of getting forced labor from a different place. The best of African society was taken away, as some of the effects of this. And there's, of course, the diaspora and diaspora, since they were forced to leave, as the definition is. And then their population distribution changed a lot. And there's also cultural diffusion. And there is a breakdown of traditional African society, since a lot of their wealth and population was taken away. Of course, there's the development of racism as well. Yeah. So next, we're going to be talking about the commercial revolution. Sorry, I was looking at something. So it was a shift in the way that Europe did business. So exploration led to increase in trade, mercantilism, and then also that led to the commercial revolution. The age of exploration also both led to and was a product of the commercial revolution. So trade networks became global. New goods were available to trade. So exploration led to mercantilism. Mercantilism is an economic policy where the colonies exist to benefit the mother country and provide them with natural resources, and they serve in a closed market. So there are calls for nations to develop large reserves of gold and silver. There were calls for ideal balance between trade, an ideal balance of trade. So that's when you sell more than you buy, export more than you import. Central government sought to promote trade with other countries by creating favorable conditions. They did this by making monopolies where only one business could sell a product, which decreased competition and made it easier to succeed as a business. And they also built roads and ports, canals, and they had a strong navy to protect the trade. So some results of the commercial revolution was a shift in the economic power of Europe, and from the Mediterranean states to the Atlantic basin states. Also, new business practices developed. There is the joint stock compass insurance companies, which we can see today. There are financial institutions and practices that were created. Capitalism continued to develop. Capitalism is an economic system that's based on supply and demand, and private property and profit motivation drive the enterprise. The merchant class grew more wealthy and more populated, and this helped give a better middle class. So nations became wealthier, and this secured the power of the monarch and, increased the strength of central government. This increased wealth and commerce led to an inflammatory period, or inflation, in Europe. So I hope this helped. I'm aware this is kind of definitely a sad topic. Yeah. Hope this helped study.